cheapskates, bike nerds, gear geeks. I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, finally getting around to it just before I sell this bike. But I wanted to talk about this super custom, wacky, nerdy build I did on this thing that I really think rules, and just give you kind of a long-term review of the bike. So let's go ahead and start up front. All right, let's start with one of the most interesting parts of the bike, which is the DSD Runt, which is dropped in the air side of the Lyric Ultimate fork. So I was not crazy about this fork when I got it. It felt kind of harsh. It was giving me hand pain, which is kind of an issue for me. I like more of a comfortable fork than a racy fork. So, it's my opinion. But yeah, the fork just didn't feel that good. It actually felt worse than the previous generation Lyric, in my opinion. But getting this in there allowed me to drop the air pressure and just made it a lot more nice off the top, more comfortable, more plush. It still has great mid-stroke support and doesn't bottom out. I'll put a link in the description to this thing so you can go see an actual good description of it. I'm not going to attempt that here, but yeah, check this thing out, the DSD Runt. It's awesome. Also, it has a they did a custom tune for me in the damper side, which was surprisingly affordable. So yeah, check them out, DSD in Colorado. All right, got a mini DHF up front. Got an Ibis 35 millimeter internal aluminum wheel up front. Nice to have a wide wheel up front for this 2.6 tire. Don't really feel like I need a 2.6, but that's what this one is. Could have been a 2.5 for sure. But yeah, kind of nice to have that wide rim up front. Okay, let's check out this sexy cockpit. These are G2 Ultimate SRAM brakes. So I have code calipers on here. The bike came with code R brakes, which were pretty good, but they don't have the contact point adjustment. And then I found a great deal on these, and they have the contact point adjustment, and they are also chrome, which is kind of what I've been trying to do to this bike. Everything is maroon, black, or chrome on here, at least if I can help it. So yeah, looks pretty bad up front. And these still have pretty much the same power as code levers. I think the reservoir is just a little smaller, but with the calipers, the code calipers, and the MTX pads that I have in there, they're plenty powerful. And you get that sweet contact point adjustment. I'm sure some of you are looking at these crazy rise handlebars. This is 60 millimeters of rise on these bad boys, and they feel great to me. I'm 6'4", 193 centimeters, and this bike has a pretty tall front end, but even with that, it's great to have these handlebars. And the nice thing about having riser handlebars rather than just increasing the stack height with spacers is you're not compromising the reach at all. So there you go. Also want to point out that this is the one SRAM part of the drivetrain, an XX1 shifter. I'll get more into that later when I talk about the cassette and derailleur, which are Shimano. Sweet DMR stem. Again, I wanted something chrome or raw aluminum, and this thing looks real fancy, especially with these brakes. Here's a sticker that my toddler put in there. Looks pretty good. Also, I have a Works Components angle adjust headset in here. So this thing is slackened out 1 degree. And I did that to lengthen the wheelbase. Like I said, I'm 6'4", very tall. This bike is not very long. It has I think 491 millimeter reach. So yeah, slacking out the front end makes it a little better in steep stuff, which I like to ride, and a little more stable and long. Reach stays the same, but actually I think it even decreases a tiny bit. But yeah, I probably would have been fine with the 64.5 degree head angle, but the 63.5 feels pretty great. Okay, moving back. This little setup here is why I don't carry a pack, and I don't care that I don't have internal storage in the frame. So this is a Topeak Ninja bottle cage, and it has little tire levers on there. It's not on here right now, but there's also a little waterproof bag that attaches on here, so you can put your snacks in there. And it also has this rad EDC, 1-up EDC pump attached. So this thing is a great pump, just as a pump, but also you can hold the 1-up EDC tool in here. So I've got all the tools I need on the trail, and there's a CO2 cartridge in there. And there's also a spot for a chain link. So yeah, got everything I need for most rides right here. And sometimes I wear a hydration belt, but almost never need a backpack, which I really like. Okay, let's talk about the shock. So you've probably heard that the Propain Tyee feels better with a coil, which is absolutely true in my experience. This bike came with a RockShox Super Deluxe Ultimate, which is a great shock, but the rear end on this bike is just so progressive. It felt pretty harsh, and this coil feels awesome. And I'm not going to go too much into this. I haven't done like a custom tune on it or anything. It just felt so good. I tried some different springs. Feels great like this. The one kind of nerdy thing I did here is I took off the parts that were easy to remove because I don't like that DVO green, and I stripped the anodizing off them. It's pretty easy to do. You can look that up on YouTube. So now I got some raw aluminum on there instead of that gross green color. Yuck. Okay, got the Shimano XT cranks. These are 170 millimeters. I used to have 175s on here. I don't feel much difference in how hard it is to pedal with the 170s, but you know, it's this much shorter, so you're not going to hit quite as many rocks. And in the Northeast where I live, it's pretty rocky. Some of you might notice on my stupid joke pedal here, I've got this spacer in here. So this is to extend the Q factor. So like I said, I'm tall, got some wide hips, and figured maybe a wider stance could be helpful and feel a little better. I often notice that my feet are kind of going like this, kind of slanting outwards on the pedals. So I thought that might solve it. I haven't really tried them yet, but if they make a big difference, I'll report back. Got the 1-up chain ring on there, and I got an oval on there. These are great because you can switch out just the teeth part, the ring part, without getting all the other stuff. So if it wears out or you want to try something else, it's pretty cheap and easy to do that. Got the 1-up guide and bash guard. Got some worn out masking tape here to make it a little less noisy. I think that made a little bit of a difference. It kind of softened it up. This is very hard plastic. Now, dig this drivetrain. So I didn't even know this cassette existed until pretty recently. So this is the latest generation Shimano cassette, but it's 11 speed. So they make an XTR 11 speed. I think usually it's just used for cross country and gravel bike weight weenies, but it's got a 45 tooth for the biggest ring, and it's exactly the same as the 51 tooth 12 speed cassette, except they just don't put on that last big 51 tooth cog. So it's 11 speeds up to 45 teeth, And the great thing about 45 teeth instead of 51 is that you can run a SG medium cage derailleur rather than the SGS long cage derailleur. So the long cage derailleur is like this much longer, and I used to destroy a few derailleurs every year, which really sucks. Ruins your ride, it can damage other parts of your bike, and obviously it sucks to have to replace a derailleur, especially if it's one of these fancy XTR ones. And you might be saying, Justin, this is cheapskate MTB. Why the heck do you have XTR stuff on here? I just got a screaming deal on this on Facebook Marketplace, and even if it wasn't a screaming deal, it's lasted so long because I'm not nailing it on rocks all the time that I think it's kind of paid for itself. So that's the drivetrain, except for what I mentioned earlier about the SRAM shifter. So we got a SRAM 12-speed shifter up front, which I really like for the light action and adjustability, hooked up to a Shimano, everything else is Shimano, chain cassette derailleur, and it works great. If you have an 11-speed cassette back here, like this one, by the way, they do have 12-speed cassettes that go to 45 teeth. Those are good too. But if you have 11 speeds, all you do is set the low limit screw so that the derailleur doesn't go past this big cog, and works great. It's just as crisp and smooth as the 12-speed cassette I had on there before. All right, I think that's it for the drivetrain. I got a DT EX511 wheel in back. It's just stronger than the Ibis ones. Been pretty happy with that wheel. Minion DHR, pretty standard stuff. And this thing might be my favorite part on the bike. It's the 1-up 210 millimeter dropper post. And before this one, I think I was running a 170, and I was definitely hitting my nuts once in a while. And this thing has pretty much put that to a stop. So my nuts and future children thank me for this amazing dropper. Thank you, 1-up. Got the fabric scoop saddle, fits my butt really nice, feels great, don't need to wear a chamois. The one thing I regret doing to this bike is the helicopter tape. This is for the shotgun seat that my kid rides on sometimes. It's pretty effective, but it just kind of looks lame and is peeling off in some places, like up there. Again, it's effective, but just aesthetically looks kind of crappy. What I should have done is, when I got the bike, I should have just put some ride wrap or some more legit protection on it. So that's what I'm going to do with my next bike, especially since it's probably going to be starting as just a frame. I think that's it. Maybe I'll remember something as I talk about how this thing rides. Oh, lots of electrical tape on here to quiet the cables down. This stuff works pretty well. And speaking of the cables, the one negative thing that lots of reviews mention about this bike is the stupid cable routing down here, which I agree, it's dumb. So they route the cables under the bottom bracket, which can get snagged. One time I yanked the shifter cable out of there with a stick, and it also rattles around. Sometimes it rubs on the tire. I'm not sure what they were thinking about that, because the rest of the bike is super well designed, and they've changed it since this bike came out on the Eugene and the Spindrift. But you can get the file, the 3D printing file for these slick little cable holders online, and I printed that off just with some online company for like $15. It works great. Also have this mucky nuts front fender that I've just cut a bit to modify and make it work in the back, so it keeps junk off the pivots and the shock here, at least a little bit, and it gives me something to attach the cables to there. So now the cables are very solid and don't give me any problems. So if you got a Tyee and you're wondering what to do with those stupid cables down there, this is a good solution. All right, so let's talk about how this bad boy rides. So I started the video off saying I'm selling this, and the reason I'm selling it is because it's a little short for me. It's 491 millimeter reach, and I'm 193 centimeters, which not a great ratio unless you're like Josh Bryceland or Jack Moyer. For me, I want something a little longer and more stable. I've ridden some transitions recently that felt really good, that were like 510, 515, something like that. So if this bike was 20 millimeters longer, something like that, it would be incredible for me. But I'm gonna try switching this out for something longer. Other than the length, I love this thing. If you can get the suspension dialed and the contact points, it's just such a great bike. The coil shock feels incredible. It has this really unusual combination of pop and comfort and suppleness. So with the coil, it tracks great, really nice traction, no harshness, but it still can just pop off roots and turn any trail into just like a skate park. So really fun that way. Definitely the DSD Runt has something to do with that too, making that front end more comfortable. I also have these rev grips on here. I mentioned before, hand pain has been an issue for me. These things are legit. They really do help. Not cheap, but it's worth it to not have your hands hurting after every ride. So yeah, this is just a super sick bike. If I was a couple inches shorter, I'd probably hang on to it. But yeah, just a little on the short side. So if you're not a tall freak like I am, definitely recommend this thing. So let me know if you have any comments, questions, concerns, issues in the comments. And yeah, happy to nerd out on any of the components on this thing or talk more about how it rides and my experience with it. All right, peace.